To news this morning, an unprecedented plan to cut air traffic by up to 10% at the nation's 40 busiest airports starting this Friday. And Kentucky candidates now can officially file to run for next year's election. We have that information.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, Mountain family. Happy Thursday to you. My name's Amelia Lee here on this November 6th. We are just about at 5 o'clock this morning and, of course, ready for a check of our weather with meteorologist Megan Dusmal, because it's not a good morning unless we check in with Megan to tell us all about the weather. So what can we expect today and going into that weekend, Megan?
Well, I can't give you great news, but I can give you good news. Today is going to be a relatively calm day. It is going to be a tad cooler than yesterday, though, as we're taking temperatures this morning in a mixture of the 40s. So on that note, it's a little bit warmer than yesterday. But here's a look at the afternoon. We're going to be seeing a mixture of some upper 50s, low 60s, and for our far southern counties, seeing some mid-60s, so definitely chillier than yesterday, but the upper 60s and low 70s do return tomorrow, and with that we will also see a storm chance. Now that's not the story for today, though. Today we're just looking at sunny skies. That starts now and will continue all day long, seeing the cloud cover increasing tomorrow morning. And of course, those storm chances are in the forecast as you're heading into your Friday evening. Now, in terms of that 12-hour forecast, though, for today, again, wall-to-wall sunshine, high temperatures will be around 3 p.m. Amelia.
Thanks, Megan. Federal immigration agents detained a teacher at a Chicago preschool and daycare Wednesday. Officials identified the woman as Diana Galeno, a Colombian national in the country since 2023. While witnesses say it was a chaotic scene, officials say the daycare was not the primary target. Until recently, sensitive areas like schools and hospitals were generally off limits to immigration enforcement. That changed under the second Trump administration. Yesterday's incident, the latest in a string of controversial arrests that have been happening across Chicago as part of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown.
ICE agents followed a teacher into the facility without a warrant and abducted her in front of her students. This woman is a trusted, loved member of her community with a work permit.
In a statement to CBS News, the Department of Homeland Security denied targeting the daycare center and said Galeno sped away from ICE agents in a car and then fled on foot into the daycare center, where she was later arrested. Well, we continue to follow the devastating news out of Louisville. At least 12 people are dead after a UPS plane crashed during takeoff in Louisville. 3 people were on the plane. The other deaths were on the ground after a massive fire. Governor Andy Beshear says one of the victims is a child. Investigators are on scene and say they've already recovered the black box and reviewed security footage. CBS's Nicole Valdez was at Louisville's International Airport.
28 members of the National Transportation Safety Board arrived at Louisville's International Airport on Wednesday to start their investigation into the terrifying crash of a UPS plane.
And we're deeply sorry, and we are here to try to find out not only what happened, but why it happened, and more importantly, how do we prevent it from happening again.
Video shows the plane's wing on fire during takeoff and the aircraft exploding into flames shortly after leaving the runway. The plane hit a nearby petroleum recycling plant and an auto parts facility. And with 38,000 gallons of fuel, the fire raged overnight.
There are landing gear that's out there. You would not see a whole fuselage. With the intense fire that was there, most of things are gone.
Officials say this disaster could have been so much worse, as many of those employees had actually already left those businesses before the crash. Kentucky's governor says the state's disaster relief is now set up to help families of those victims, including paying for their funerals.
In Kentucky, we grieve together and we support one another.
Captain Norman C. Wright Jr. is a retired UPS pilot who spoke with others who fly the same MD-11 plane.
And they were just dumbfounded as much as I am. It's so unusual. It's hard to wrap your mind around what happened.
3 crew members were on board. UPS employs about 20,000 workers at their processing facility in Louisville. Local officials say almost everyone in the city knows someone who works there. Nicole Valdez, CBS News, Louisville.
The airport has reopened one runway. A shelter-in-place order is down to just a quarter-mile radius around the crash site, and officials are monitoring the water and air quality in that area. Governor Andy Beshear declared a state of emergency to ensure resources can be sent to those who need it quickly. This includes support for emergency management and the Kentucky National Guard. State resources will be used for disaster resource management, expenses related to response, and reimbursement. At the same time, the governor created the Team Kentucky Emergency Relief Fund to help those affected by the crash. Governor Beshear is praising first responders after Tuesday night's plane crash, saying the outcome could have been even worse. The governor said the cargo plane went down just feet from several busy areas, including a restaurant, the city's convention center, and a large Ford plant.
Let me tell you, this plane barely missed a restaurant bar. It was very close to a very large Ford plant with hundreds, if not 1,000+ workers. It was very close to our convention center that's having a big livestock show that people were arriving for. So really tough, but recognize it could be worse.
Governor Beshear also thanked firefighters and investigators who continue working at the scene. Yesterday, he says Tuesday night, 50 fire units and more than 200 emergency crews responded. One part of the fallout from the deadly UPS plane crash in Louisville is the thick plume of smoke that hung over the area for hours. The smoke was so heavy it prompted a shelter-in-place order for nearby neighborhoods. Experts say there was a good reason for that warning.
Smoke is a potent irritant, and if someone has respiratory issues such as asthma or COPD, then they're going to be more sensitive to something like smoke.
Dr. Miller advises turning off HVAC systems, keeping doors and windows closed, and staying indoors until air quality improves. She says most lingering effects from the smoke should clear within the next day or so. Officials at Bluegrass Airport in Lexington say every year emergency crews run through drills to make sure everyone is prepared if a disaster occurs. Darnell Crenshaw shows us how police and fire train, and you'll hear from a woman who dropped off her husband at Bluegrass Airport, and after hearing Tuesday night's news, she's concerned for his safety.
Kind of something that a lot of folks in the community don't realize is that we have an ARF training center located here at Bluegrass Airport. So ARF stands for Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting. So we're one of just only a handful or two of those throughout the country that serve to train firefighters from different entities across the country.
At that facility, they have a full-size simulator for training. Also, the airport has its own police and fire department. Every year, the airport runs tabletop emergency exercises, and every 3 years, members of the community come out to the airfield to reenact injured passengers.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, each time it's a good learning experience. The scenarios are always different, and it's obviously helpful to keep things top of mind and fresh.
LaDonna New wasn't even aware of these safety procedures.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. I didn't even actually think about that, but that's good to know.
She's waiting for her husband's flight to take off. He's headed on a 13-hour plane ride to Iraq for business. New says her husband, who flies a lot, heard the news in Louisville and was nervous about flying on Wednesday.
He hates flying anyway, and then when he watched that last night, this morning he was a nervous wreck, and he's usually a pretty calm man.
The airplane crash in Louisville hits close to home for New. She knew 3 people who died on Flight 5191 that crashed in Lexington almost 20 years ago. Watching from the cell phone parking lot, she doesn't take the safety of her husband's flight for granted.
Like I said, sitting here watching these planes take off right here, I'm thinking, that could just happen to him just as easy as it happened yesterday.
The FAA regulates firefighters be on staff 24/7 to respond to an emergency. Well, starting tomorrow, thousands of flights a day could be canceled in what the Department of Transportation is calling a proactive safety measure. The decision prompted by ongoing air traffic control staffing shortages and mounting airport delays due to what's now the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. A surge in sick calls from airport employees working without pay has led to delays and ground stops. The Trump administration warns staffing issues could get worse with air traffic controllers set to miss their second full paychecks next week.
If the pressures continue to build, even after we take these measures, we'll come back and take additional measures.
All of this is happening just 3 weeks before the Thanksgiving travel rush. President Donald Trump Wednesday urged Senate Republicans to end the shutdown, arguing it hurt them in Tuesday's elections. Democratic leaders called again for negotiations, looking to include an extension to Affordable Care Act subsidies to any bill to fund the government. Today marks the first day that Kentucky candidates can officially file to run for next year's election. The filing window is open until January 9th at 4 o'clock. That's when we'll know which names will appear on the ballot for the May primary. There are several key races we'll be watching next year, including the race to fill Senator Mitch McConnell's seat. Well, thanks so much for getting your day started with us on Mountain News this morning at 5:09. Coming up, a group in Kentucky that's helping folks one bicycle at a time. That's up next in The Good Side.
And we are tracking strong to severe storm chances tomorrow.
Canines